Okay, so we were discussing about that, the labor productivity, how to, increase this labor productivity. And we know that the saving and the investment in physical capital and also the human capital, which can accumulate the skill and knowledge of people. So we require what the education and training and the job experience to enhance the labor productivity. Then after that, how the discovery of a new technologies would play an important role in the theory of growth. So the discovery of a new technologies, basically a technological change which is very important to increase what this capital. As we know, there are the two category of theories. The one is exogenous, and the second is what the endogenous. The exogenous theories, they assume that the technology is given for them, but still they are utilizing capital on the given technology. Okay, the second way is that the technology they are uh, actually embodying, or we say that that is a part of their own uh, technical progress function or their own growth function. So with the technology, when it is a variable one, then they can have a control on the returns to scale. Now there are the two ways to analyze it, like, because everywhere whenever the discovery of a new technologies would be done, then capital would get affected through it. So the exogenous theories, they are saying that the capital would, if you want to increase this capital with the technology which is a given one, then there would always be a diminishing returns to scale. But the endogenous theories, they are saying that the capital may have increasing returns too, because they can control the diminishing returns, because now this technology is a part of their own production function. So, with this kind of thing, how the new technologies would affect this productivity curve or the labor productivity curve in the countries itself. Some of the most powerful and far reaching technologies are embodied, at least partly in human capital. So these are the embodied function what the Lucas has talked about. So that is a new one. So whenever we do talk about the discovery of a new technologies, then we actually are discussing about the new endogenous growth models. So for example, language, writing, mathematics, these are, the things which can, give you the increasing returns to scale. See here, most of the technologies are embodied in the physical capital. If it is embodied, okay, then how you control this diminishing returns? By inculcating some other things like organizational things. Like here, few of the things are mentioned, but some organization can, enhance this productivity by giving their own facilities. Like, as I already have mentioned about the Google, and some of other organizations are giving such kind of facilities to their employees to enhance their efficiencies. So productivity depends on how well production is organized and the economic system is in place. Russia has excellent human capital, lots of physical capital, and large amounts of natural resources. But labor productivity is low because the economic system and the organization of production are still very far from the most appropriate for permitting high output and output growth. So, to enhance labor productivity is an important thing for any country, whether they have natural resources, whether they have other economic resources. But if they won't be able to, enhance the labor productivity, that may not help to, control this diminishing returns which is coming out through the capital. Better management, better organization, and a better economic system. So these things, they are adding in the new theories. Whenever we do talk about this discovery of a new technologies, then this along with the technology, like you must have gone through somewhere the model of Williamson, the model of Morris, and the model of this Baumol. They all are talking about this, discovery of a new technologies along with some other characteristics which, the companies has to follow to enhance the efficiency. Like there we have a behavioral model of the Williamson is saying what, somebody is asking for admitting. Let me check. Okay. Fine. So Williamson says what? Williamson says that if you are adding the new characteristics, like the perks, if you are providing to your employees, you are giving them, the facilities, even the specific working hours, and also the increment. So these things are also, giving some additional inputs in the efficiency and the productivity part as you are, following the technology. And in that way, you can enhance efficiency and can control the diminishing returns to scale, along with if the labor is increasing with the capital. So you will not have the diminishing returns in the economy. Then we'll discuss it. Real GDP growth depends on aggregate labor hours growth and on labor productivity growth. As we already have discussed, the labor productivity depends on these two things. The one is aggregate hours growth and labor productivity growth. Labor productivity growth, and which is enhancing what is real GDP growth. Aggregate hours growth depends on these two parameters. The one is population growth and the labor force participation rate. As I was mentioning earlier also, that the population growth and the labor growth has the differences. It means the population growth is increasing along with this capital. Then what happens? The capital per labor would also increase. It means your capital would be diminishing as the population is increasing, because entire population is not converted into the labor force now. So that is why you would be getting what the diminishing returns. So here the aggregate hours are very important, which is dependent on this population growth. So as population growth is increasing, okay, so we cannot say this aggregate hours are also increasing. Now in most of the countries, their the population nature, or we say the demographic dividends, like we have in case of our India, we have a youth population more, and if they are more, they can work more, so we can get more labor force. And in that case, if we focus on labor productivity, it will convert the diminishing returns into the increasing returns. So this is very important. Like China, they have more Asian population. If their population growth is increasing, their labor force will not increase that much, but still they can think for the labor productivity, and they convert this Asian population into the independent, the workforce. So that is their own strategy. But still, if they have more Asian population, the capital diminishing returns may not be converted into the increasing rate of returns. So here aggregate hours growth is depending upon this population growth and the labor force participation rate, which is actually converting the whole scenario in the real GDP growth. So we need to think for it. The real GDP growth is depending upon the labor force for the country, where we are enhancing the labor productivity and converting this diminishing rates into the increasing returns to scale. Then average hours per worker is also the important analysis. The population growth, labor force participation, average hour per worker. Why there is a reason of average hours per worker analysis? Because whenever the one increment of the capital would be done by the country itself, and along that there is a population growth, and there is not the equal increment of the labor productivity or the per hour worker, the enhancing, then it is affecting the growth of capital in the country itself. So we call it 1/3 rule of the Solos, when he was he did the research and given this 1/3 rule, how to enhance capital and why it is giving the diminishing returns to scale. Labor productivity growth also depends on the physical capital growth, human capital growth, and technological advances. As we already have started this, that if we do focus on this physical capital growth, along with that, if we have the labor productivity, then this capital growth may be converted into the increasing returns to scale. The human capital growth, in the short run, you have to invest in the education, and then in the long run, you will get the results. The technological advances, that is also giving the technological advances is actually giving a subsistence level, or the subsistence level of the economy may also rise from the given level. And if it is happening, the standard of living would also increase, and this is also giving what the efficiency rise in the labor productivity. So that is why these all three parameters are important. and added into the labor productivity part. And also this improved organization, as we already have discussed, that the Williamson has said that these characteristics, if we are adding, then also giving you the more efficiency in the country itself. So we can also add here the education, training, job experience. These all things are, the part of this human capital. So if you want to enhance human capital, these should be the continuous process for the country or a company itself. Now let's see the productivity curve in this regard. The relationship between real GDP per hour of labor and the quantity of capital per hour of labor with a given state of technology. Here I'm adding this line, this given state of technology. It means I'm talking about the exogenous theories over here. Okay. As capital per labor increases, output per labor increases, but with fixed technology, eventually output per labor will increase at progressively slower rates, diminishing returns. So now this is basically a one-third rule of this Solowian analysis, how this capital is actually producing this diminishing returns through scale. So here you can see an increase in capital per hour of labor brings a movement along the productivity curve PC. This is the productivity curve. We know the productivity curve is moving like this. Now, why this is happening? Here we have increasing returns to scale, but from some point of time, this starts declining, becoming constant, and then start declining, and this will go like this. Okay, this will further go like this. Now this is happening because here we have capital per hour of labor. So as you are increasing capital, then it is producing what? The diminishing returns to scale. The capital per hour of labor. Here in this analysis, we don't have a population analysis, okay? But that is an assumption, hidden assumption. As the capital growth is increasing, okay, there are some advancement of the technology which is happening simultaneously. Then alongside we have, because now the capital and the population is also increasing, the capital would give you what? The diminishing returns to scale. So that is why in the starting, if you would say initial time, this is giving you hike. Okay, the reason behind it, immediately you cannot see the changes in the population growth, but in the long run there would be the changes. But if you're increasing capital, then this is also giving you some changes. See here, the when capital per hour labor increasing from $30 to $60, real GDP per hour of labor is also increasing from $20 to $25. So one thing is very clear over here, that the capital, if it is rising for a country specifically, when we are assuming in the exogenous model that the technology is given, then the GDP is increasing when the capital is increasing. So who is actually supporting this? The Harrod is supporting, Domer is supporting, Solo is supporting, all these theories are supporting this aspect. If the capital is getting enhanced, though it is producing diminishing returns to scale, but the real GDP would also enhance. The reason behind it, we are assuming here the labor productivity part as a hidden assumption. If we are focusing on it, then of course, the population growth, if it is converted into the labor force, then it is giving you a rise in the real GDP too. So you can see the productivity curve like this. An increase in human capital, see, because our hidden assumption was this. So an increase in human capital or a technological advancement shifts the productivity curve upward. So there is no other way to shift it. You need to focus on this aspect. See the capital per labor, per hour of labor. If capital is increasing, okay, at the same time, if labor is not increasing, then what happens? Then you will get increasing returns to scale. But this is not the real picture. The real picture is the population growth is also enhancing. So in that way, you need to convert that into the labor force. So along with this capital, if the labor is rising, okay, then you are also thinking this human capital, because you want to make this labor as more productive. It means with a small proportion of a capital, this labor productivity is enhanced and they are utilizing it in a proper way. And that is why in a long run, you can see this curve is not declining like this. This curve would shift upward. That is a technological advancements for this country itself. So with this increase in human capital or a technological advance, real GDP per hour of labor is increasing from $20 to $25. See, when we were at here $30 capital, per hour of labor, then the real GDP is enhancing this much. When we were here, then the real GDP is enhancing from 25 to $32. Okay, so that is effect of an increase in human capital and technological advance. And here what is happening? Effect of an increased capital hour of labor. So this to this is only capital per hour of labor which is happening, but a shift in productivity you would see only with this human capital. So this particularly supports by endogenous growth theories, and this supports by exogenous growth theory. So that is the major difference between these two. Is that clear to all, or there is any doubt? Yes, I'm looking for your. Yeah, Preeti, please come a bit loud because I'm not able to hear you.
मैम वो एंडोजीनियस और एक्सोजीनियस वाला जो आपने
हाँ,
एक्सप्लेन किया वो एक बार वापस करते हैं
उसको वापस बताओ.
एक बार वापस
Okay, see here, this curve, blue curve is showing what? This blue curve is showing that when we are investing $30, okay, we are actually increasing our GDP, real GDP from $20 to 25. The exogenous model says that the technology is given to us. Okay, we are not shuffling into the technology. यानी हमारे प्रोडक्शन फंक्शन का वो पार्ट नहीं है. ठीक है, इसे किसी और ने इन्वेंट किया है. फाइन. Now, because it's not a part of our production function, I can only think for what one thing which is supported by Harrod also, Domer also, and Solo also. So I have some initial capital. Okay, the Solo says there is some initial capital. तो हम उस initial capital को utilize करना चाहते हैं. Now this initial capital is being utilized by some of the labor also of our country. Okay, the labor force. So that is why my capital is being compared on the capital per hour of labor. यानी इस कैपिटल को कोई यूटिलाइज कर रहा है, और इसको यूटिलाइज करने वाला लेबर क्या होना चाहिए? प्रोडक्टिव होना चाहिए. लेकिन हम इस प्रोडक्टिविटी को चेंज नहीं कर पा रहे. हम क्यों नहीं कर पा रहे? बिकॉज वी आर फॉलोइंग एन एक्सोजेनस मॉडल. ओके, तो टेक्नोलॉजी में मुझे कुछ चेंज नहीं करना है, लेकिन मुझे उस तरीके से लेबर को इसके अंदर इन्वॉल्व करना है कि कैपिटल पर लेबर मुझे इंक्रीजिंग रिटर्न्स दे, जो कि इस पॉइंट से इस पॉइंट तक मुझे इंक्रीजिंग रिटर्न्स दे रहा है. एंड दैट इज हैपनिंग फॉर दोज कंट्रीज जहां पर क्या होगा? कैपिटल कम होगा तो डिमिनिशिंग रिटर्न्स कम होगा. ओके, बट at some point of time you would also realize that the population growth is rising for your country also. Okay, तो जब population growth बढ़ेगा तो gradually, ठीक है, यहां से आपको कैपिटल में इनहांस करना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि अगर आप ये नहीं करोगे तो पॉपुलेशन बढ़ता चला जाएगा और डिमिनिशिंग रिटर्न और कैपिटल आपका कम होता चला जाएगा. तो आपको कैपिटल को इनहांस करना है. दैट इज अ नीड ऑफ, यू नो, अकॉर्डिंग टू द हैरड ऑल्सो, नॉर्मर ऑल्सो, ये सब कैपिटल पे फोकस करते हैं, क्योंकि आप टेक्नोलॉजी में कोई चेंज नहीं कर सकते हो. सो इफ यू आर मेकिंग अ राइज इन कैपिटल, ओके, तो कैपिटल इस पॉइंट से इस पॉइंट पे बढ़ा आपका. तो अगर आपने कैपिटल बढ़ाया तो ही आप सेविंग पे फोकस कर सकते हो, तभी आप इन्वेस्टमेंट पे फोकस कर सकते हो. डॉमर क्या कहता है? डॉमर ये कहता है कि प्रोडक्टिव एफिशिएंसी वुड आल्सो come from the capital enhancement. Okay, so that efficiency you need to, you know, get it through this capital enhancement. Similarly, if you are rising capital, increasing capital, तो आप warranted growth, natural growth, इन सारी growths पे भी पहुंच सकते हो according to the Harrod's analysis. और Solovian analysis ये कहता है if you are making a change in the capital per increment capital, it's 1/3 rule says that you are able to change your country's per capita income also. So that is why the real GDP is increasing because of a change from this point to this point. That is the exogenous analysis. लेकिन इन सब के पीछे एक बहुत important चीज है, and that is what this labor. And we are talking about capital per hour of labor. Okay, so this labor is very important. As my population growth is increasing, there is a new labor force which is coming, but this new labor force requires more training, more specialization, more, you know, skill. And if I'm focusing on this, then I can invest in the human capital, in training programs, in education programs. If I'll make them skill, then the productivity would enhance and this capital would be now utilized in a better way. So this is not only that I'm increasing capital, But along with increasing in capital, I would like to use it in a proper and a better way. And that is why this curve is shifting upward. So the red curve is actually indicating this endogenous one, and the blue curve is indicating that is the exogenous one. There are some of the things which are beyond the control, like we cannot stop our diminishing returns in an effective way, but here we can stop our diminishing returns and can convert into the increasing returns. This curve may go as a declining stage further because more population would be there. Like country like India, the entire population is not converted into the labor force. Country like China, the entire population is not converted into the labor force. So there are the dependent populations too, and in that case your labor force would be less, and we cannot even think for the productivity aspect. So that is why this curve may have a declining stage, but this curve we can stop to go further. Okay, so that is the major difference between this endogenous and the exogenous model. Now it's clear, Preeti?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that clear now? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So now we'll talk about the diminishing returns further. The shape of the productivity curve reflects that the law of diminishing returns, which states that as the quantity of one input increases with the quantities of all other inputs remaining the same, output increases but by ever smaller increments. So as we have seen, the curve was becoming concave, or coming downward from the, once it is rising, then it is coming downward. So this is happening because the first you are getting increasing returns. The reason behind at the initial stage your capital is more, but the labor which you are utilizing, that is less. Okay, but the second stage, gradually your labor would increase, and if you're not utilizing it in a proper way, then it will come a declining stage. So that is why we have a diminishing returns. The one third rule, by studying the growth in the US economy, Robert Solow of MIT observed a one third rule. And it says what? The observation that on the average, with no change in human capital and technology, a 1% increase in capital per hour of labor brings a 1/3% increase in labor productivity. So, if we are not changing, even in human capital, even in technology, and if we are increasing this capital per hour of labor, even in exogenous model, then this 1% change in labor productivity you would see, and that is the only resulting in your real GDP, which is rising in the economy. So this productivity we are actually not changing by adopting the technology in our model. This is given to you, but indirectly, by increasing your capital only, you are just utilizing your given the labor growth. The labor growth is also the exogenous, which we are assuming in the exogenous model. Okay, that is exponentially rising. That is also not under your control. So if it is happening, then how you are converting this thing into the productivity? So that's still not, you are converting diminishing returns into the increasing returns. The only thing which is happening, your real GDP may enhance. Okay, according to the Solow, according to the Harrod, according to the Dormer, if you would change your capital, you are actually investing in the physical capital. The investment in physical capital would give you savings more, and would also give you this further efficiency in part of productivity, what Dormer has suggested into that. The Dormer is exactly talking about the autonomous investment. Okay, the autonomous investment, it means done into this physical investment in the capital, and then further it is giving you what the productive efficiency of the economy. But Harrod has talked about accelerated growth. Accelerated growth comes out through the capital. So if you are investing in the capital, then only this acceleration would come into the economy. So both ways, they are saying the similar thing. That is, the capital has to be enhanced, but their approach is different. The one is talking about more inefficiency part. The other one is talking about the more acceleration part for the economy. But the capital is only the source of saving and investment. And if you are doing that, then only you can enhance your real GDP in the economy. Then broadly, we have three growth theories. The first you already have gone through, that is the classical growth theory. That is the model of Ricardian, Malthusian. Okay, so these are the class. Karl Marx also. Okay, so you already have gone through that is in the undergrads. The neoclassical growth theory. We actually start with this Harrod Dormer model, Solow model, John Robinson model, golden rule of capital accumulation, even the Monte Growth models, theory of the income distributions. These all models you'll be taking into the neoclassical one. Then the all new growth theories are the endogenous growth theories here. So all endogenous models you would be studying in that. So classical says briefly, we'll go through this. The classical growth theory says that the clash between an exploding population and limited resource will eventually bring economic growth to an end. Now, how is that possible? Hope you all remember the Malthusian theory, the Karl Marx theory, Ricardian theory, what they are talking about. Do you have any idea about what Ricardo says? Ricardo ने किस चीज पे बात करी थी जब क्लासिकल थियरीज दी थी उन्होंने? Anybody? Yes? Anyone? Hazir, Preeti, Bharat? Silence?
Ma'am, Ricardo talked about the rent.
Rent. And they talk about the diminishing returns too. So one land, if you are utilizing again and again, its productivity is getting declined. Okay. So that is happening in terms of
Yes,
rent.
ma'am.
Okay. The Karl Marx has talked about the surplus value. They talked about the labor value, and also Malthusian theory says what? When you have a population explosions, then the geometric mean resources would enhance with the arithmetic mean, and with the geometric mean you would have a population explosion. In that case there would be natural calamities would end this the whole process. So it's an automatic process. The whole process is automatic. You're not taking anything which is endogenous. Everything is what the exogenous in their analysis. So Malthusian, we know that the it's a classical theory named for the Thomas Robert Malthus, and we know that how the resources are less to the economy and how the growth automatically gets end when there is a population explosion. So what is the basic idea for all classical theories? Advances in technology and the accumulation of capital bring increased productivity and increased real GDP per person. So there is also the growth. Okay. But what is happening there? The advances in technology and accumulation of capital. So again, we are just talking about how to bring the productivity and this real GDP per person. But their approach is different. Classical growth theory says that the increase in real GDP per person will be temporary because prosperity will induce a population explosion, and the population explosion will decrease real GDP per person. This is very important. The growth is also there in classical analysis too. So if the real GDP per person, or we say the capital, if it is increasing, because capital is somewhere discussed by this Karl Marx also in his analysis. So if this is happening, the growth will definitely be there and there will be some prosperity. Now we already have discussed about the subsistence line. So every growth has to achieve first of all the subsistence line. Okay. So if our target is to enhance real GDP, the real GDP, why to enhance? Because the particularly whosoever is, in the country, they all desire to, get the basic amenities. So whatever is required for their livelihood, that is important, and they want to get it. Okay. If it is, they are reaching to this particular line, then after, if the growth is happening, then there that we call as a prosperity. And if there is a prosperity, this will induce a population explosion, because now people are having standard of living. Okay, now they got everything, now they will plan for marriage, they will plan for family. So these things would now be increasing more in such economics. Okay, so if you are crossing the subsistence level, then you definitely go for acquiring more standard of living and a life further. And that is why there would be a population explosion. And this population explosion will decrease the real GDP per person. Okay. So then after further, you will come back on the same situation. It means what Malthusian said, if there will be the population explosion, then automatically the natural calamities would end the entire growth. So this thing would happen automatically. But how, according to the idea of the classical, we would see further. When the classical economies were developing, their ideas about population growth and unprecedented population explosions were underway. To explain the high rate of population growth, the classical economists used the idea of a subsistence, real income, real GDP per person. So, in classical theory, when real income exceeds the subsistence real income, the population grows. So, we would see this thing. I will directly go to the next slide to explain it. Okay, fine. You see here, we have this red line. This is the subsistence real GDP. Okay, so the economy starts at the point A and on the productivity curve with the real GDP at the subsistence level, and the population is constant. Now, as capital per hour of labor is increasing, you see from A to B, if the capital per hour of labor is increasing, the real GDP per person rises above the subsistence level. Then you would see that too at B point. Okay. Here we are earlier. Now from this situation to this situation, we have a capital per labor is rising, and because of that your real GDP is also rising. So you're starting from this point, and if we call it this is your subsistence level, then to this situation we can account for a growth in the economy. Then what happens as technological advance, human capital accumulate, increase in productivity curve shifts upward, and then this BC curve would be like that. So you're reaching from B to C point. Okay, so that's also fine. Now you are reaching to the in long run higher productivity growth. Now what happens, actually the growth is giving you more population growth also. See this curve and this curve, this is much more concave. Okay, now from this situation to this situation, wait, with the real GDP above the subsistence level, the population grows and the capital per hour of labor decreases downward along PC1. So this would come down like this. Okay, this is automatical process, and this is happening only in the classical. So now we got this point D here. So from the C point, when you are reaching, first you have started from this A point, there is a capital which is rising per hour of labor, then you are reaching to the B point, and from this B point, because this B to C, there would be a hidden assumption of a technological advances, and this is happening because of the population, because of this real GDP growth, and now it is above the subsistence level, so automatically this advancements would come, and this would giving a results to the population growth, and then you are reaching to this C point. Now from C point automatically you are coming to this again subsistence level. Now according to the Malthusian analysis, what is happening, this is happening that uh, natural calamities may come, and also the capital per labor is also rising, and because of that you are producing more of diminishing returns, and that is why the automatic adjustments would work out in the economy, and you're coming back from point C to point D. Okay, so that was just an idea about the classical theory, how they rise from the subsistence level, and they're coming back on the subsistence level because of the explosion in the population growth. So that is just a Malthusian idea, and also the diminishing returns idea of this Ricardian theory. Because if you are going again and again in the same pattern, then there would always occurrence of this diminishing returns. Then neoclassical growth theory. The neoclassical, it means you're talking about the Harrod, Dommer. They all have talked about this capital one, and the capital was the most important thing in that. The neoclassical growth theory asserts that the population growth and technological change influence, but are not themselves influenced by the real GDP growth. See here, in the previous analysis, the population growth was affected through this real GDP growth. Okay. Here in this analysis, this is not happening. The reason because you have control in all such situations. Okay. You can even go for, enhancing productivity by enhancing capital because you are converting capital into the saving and investment. So according to the neoclassical theory, growth will persist. It doesn't mean that you're coming from point C to point D again. Okay, it means to the downturn. Here you may go further, but maybe at the diminishing returns. Okay, it means your curve PC2 or PC1 would go continuous along with that curve, but the curve particularly may decline further, but you are not coming back towards that particular point D. So population growth, how you define with this neoclassical. Two opposing economic forces influences population growth. As income increases, the birth rate decreases and the death rate decreases. Okay, birth rate. Okay, fine. As income increases, the birth rate, here you would take increases. I think this is somewhere a typing error. So birth rate increases and the death rate decreases. How we are actually defining this? See, this also can be taken as a birth rate decreases, but not, a very immediate process it is. What classical says, the classical theory says that if there is a population explosion, then the birth rate is rising both. Okay, and death rate is also rising both. In both the situations are there, in the same directional it is going. But here in neoclassical, you can control even the birth rate and also the death rate. The birth rate decreasing in the birth rate, it's not the immediate process. This will take time. It means a technological advances, once you are reaching to the achieving standard of living, also the subsistence level, and also when the people are getting aware, then only they can realize, yes, the birth rate has to be controlled, and then you can achieve the desired rate of growth. But yes, you can consider that these things are controllable in case of neoclassical theory. These opposing forces are offsetting. So the rate of population growth is independent of the rate of economic growth. So here, as I mentioned, that it is not the immediate process. So you just write here, that is the increase, the birth rate which is increasing and the death rate which is decreases. So these two opposing forces are actually, offsetting the entire effect of growth. Now, technological change. In the neoclassical theory, the rate of technological change influences the rate of economic growth, but economic growth does not influence the pace of technological change. The reason behind it, you are taking a technology as a given factor in the exogenous analysis. It is assumed that technological change results from chance or something other than economic events. That is the exogenous or autonomous. So, autonomous word is being used by Dormer here. Otherwise, Harrod is talking about only acceleration, and Solo is also talking about the autonomous conjunction in this particular analysis. What is the basic idea? The technological advances bring profit opportunities, business expanding, and the new business created to exploit the new technology. So once you are investing in the capital, it is giving you further saving and further investments. The economy enjoys increased prosperity and the growth. But will the prosperity last and will the growth last? So neoclassical growth theory says that the prosperity will last, but the growth will not unless technology keeps advancing. So this they cannot control. The reason because technology is the exogenous in their analysis. So the prosperity persists because no population explosion occurs to lower real GDP per person. The reason because now you're not coming to the point D back. So that is why prosperity would remain there. But growth stops if technology stops advancing because capital accumulation brings diminishing returns and which slow the growth rate of real GDP and slow the level of saving and investment. So the difference between classical and neoclassical is what? When we do talk about this classical theory, then the growth when the real GDP is increasing, population growth is also increasing. When the population growth would be an explosion, then you are coming again towards the subsistence level. The reason behind it, your death rate is also rising and your birth rate is also rising. So your growth will not persist in case of classical analysis. But in neoclassical, there are the two important things. The one, you are focusing on the growth which persists. It means your prosperity would persist. And the second is technology, which does not persist. The reason, because the growth which will not come back towards the D point or the subsistence point. The reason, because what assumption of a population growth you are taking, that gives you, the two opposite forces. And also this particular prosperity would remain once you are reaching on the higher standard living. You're not exactly coming to the subsistence level, because you somehow know the strategy to remain further on the PC curve. It means you are able to produce diminishing returns to scale because of this technology. This technology definitely is not the exogenous in your function, but this diminishing return would allow you to continue on this PC curve, though this PC curve is definitely going to get declined further. Eventually, the growth rate of capital slows to that of the population, and real GDP per person stops growing. So, what do you need exactly here? The problem of this neoclassical growth theory is only that your technology, and which is what the exogenous in that case. So, you require something else, and that is what new growth theory, which is what the endogenous growth theory. Hope the fundamentals of classical and neoclassical is clear to you all. Is that clear or any doubt?